Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. Selfishness. RodHullIOnceWasHim, I left out the I before, turns out to be a guy from Britain who had never really heard of objectivism before at all. So I owe a small apology to him. But after studying objectivism for 15 years, as I have done, it gets a bit tiresome. Every single time I come around the corner, somebody stops me and says, selfish people are bad. You know, I don't even have to say anything. People just stop me and say it. And my frustration and anger, in this case, was on the one hand, I have to say it's not justified, because Mr. RodHullIOnceWasHim did not intend to anger or frustrate me, as many hecklers who come around and they won't listen to my arguments. They just pound, you know, through the comments and even video responses and stuff, their arguments that selfishness is bad and that you know, the state is good and that we don't know anything and reality is unreal and stuff. So RodHullIOnceWasHim, I have to apologize. I didn't think that you were going to be a reasonable person. I had every reason to believe you weren't going to be reasonable. I am happy, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, to mention that RodHullIOnceWasHim has downloaded, he says, an MP3 version of The Fountainhead. And in the comment that I read just today, he says he's going to spend the day lazing around his flat listening to it. Well, awesome. Congratulations. It's very sad that people in Britain think they are free, and yet they live under a state censorship system that's quite efficient. The BBC, of course, is a state-owned, state-chartered company, and there's no such thing as a newspaper or something like that in, you know, in Norway or wherever that you can be a writer at if you don't have a degree. You have to have a degree. You have to be educated. In America, many different things have been stapled down by the education racket, academia, but they can only get their hands in where the state has power. You can't tell a private company to demand a degree. In fact, private companies often won't take people with a degree in a certain field and will take people with experience in that field. So a degree doesn't necessarily get you far because we have such crap universities. And we have the best universities in the world. Anyways, the point is their entire media system in Britain and in Europe is even the newspapers and radio stations. I mean, the TV stations for sure, but even the newspapers and radio stations are operated by quasi-government little arms and stuff. It's like getting objectivism or capitalism a fair hearing in America's left-wing media. We have Fox News now, thanks to the last 8 or 10 years of developments. But even with Fox News on the scene, we also have a Ron Paul, and it's just shameful. It's just like, you know, there should be it's virtually bad enough we should march in the streets and revolt. What they did to Ron Paul, just plain excluding him, you know, just plain exclusion for no reason at all. Well, because for no reason at all. So RodHullIOnceWasHim is in that situation today. He really should shorten his name, I think. He's in a situation where he hasn't heard about Ayn Rand or objectivism and doesn't know much about capitalism and doesn't hear that side of the debate. So on YouTube, thank you America for inventing and giving to the world computers, and then the internet, and then YouTube. And thank you the world for giving us cheap digital cameras. Thank you America, pardon me, for giving the world cheap digital cameras, which Mr. Cropper used to get on there and finally reach RodHullIOnceWasHim. So he says that the mistake where he said that the selfish person would burn their money when they die rather than let someone else use it, he said that mistake was a very powerful lesson for him and he'll never forget it. And then in another comment he says, the fact that I said that, you know, just off the top of my head at the end of the video goes to show how deeply ingrained the wrong definition of selfishness is. Well, that made my day. That made my day. I haven't heard anything that encouraging in a long time. So I want to welcome RodHullIOnceWasHim into the ante-room of selfish people, possibly. I don't know, maybe he's not selfish, but at least he's got his head on straight enough to say, there is a logical inconsistency in the definition of selfishness. You know, just like Newton had to sit down and say, So there's a logical inconsistency in the word gravity. Because levity means to float and gravity means to fall, and therefore light things float and heavy things fall. But Newton changed that, didn't he? He said it is not true that light things float. All mass is attracted to mass. All matter is attracted to matter. It is not true that some stuff is light and some stuff is heavy. There's just different ratios of heaviness. That's all there is. He changed the word gravity forever. He also changed many other words. Thank you, Galileo, for the word inertia and its current day meaning, its modern meaning. And thank you, Ayn Rand, for the modern meaning of the word selfishness.